America now, and we don't give a shit about you. You're not our fucking prince.
Beyond anything I've ever seen.
He's a duplicitous, self-centered, disloyal hypocrite.
I would love reconciliation.
We'll see King Charles do this.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles.
Harry and Meghan, they have an issue when it comes to their memory and when it comes to the truth.
William is reportedly formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH titles.
Harry's digging an even bigger hole for himself here. Now, a staggering 2/3 of Brits are calling for Harry and Meghan to be stripped of their HRH titles.
Major breaking news out of London. Buckingham Palace announcing Harry and Meghan will no longer formally represent the Queen.
We immediately went into the trenches together. But she said she was in the trenches. She alludes to being in the trenches when she was in the British royal family. Girl, you lived in a castle.
I can't even. Meghan and Harry are the worst.
Does it make more sense to hear our story from us?
Oh, shut up. What do you mean the stakes are this high? Who do you think you are?
Brat, to be honest, and very, very entitled.
King Charles on his way out, Prince William is expected to take over the crown.
I just can't stand her. I just think she's such a phony.
She is relentless, she is shameless, and she is exhausting.
It's the kind of headline Prince Harry never thought he'd see. 62% of the British public now say it's time to strip him of his title. Not a fringe poll, not an internet flash vote. Full-scale national survey that revealed something brutal.
I would love reconciliation with my family. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of the securities. But it would be nice to reconcile. If they don't want that, that's entirely.
The once beloved prince has completely lost the country, and it gets worse. Among older and conservative voters, support for removing his Duke of Sussex title jumps to over 70%. Even among those traditionally more sympathetic, young people and Labour voters, the tide is turning. The message is crystal clear. He no longer represents the people, the monarchy, or the crown. And while Harry remains cloistered in his California mansion, navigating Netflix meetings and podcast cameos, the backlash in Britain is hardening.
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the king in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
This isn't just about disapproval anymore, it's about rejection. The poll didn't ask whether people disliked him. It asked if they believed he still deserved his royal title, and tens of thousands said no. After everything, the Oprah sit-down, the memoir, the accusations, the press tours, the British public has spoken, and they're done waiting for him to apologize. They want action. It's not just about what he said, it's about what he's become. What was once the charming, rebellious spare to the heir is now being described in UK headlines as a duplicitous, disloyal hypocrite.
He's a duplicitous, self-centered, vile, disloyal hypocrite.
Soldier prince who walked behind Diana's coffin, who served in Afghanistan with courage, who represented resilience and duty. That version of Harry has disappeared. In his place is a man who, according to critics, uses royal privilege as a shield while lobbing grenades at the very institution that gave him everything. And now, that shield is on the verge of being shattered. Because this poll didn't emerge in a vacuum. It comes as Parliament quietly prepares to act. Petition has already made its way into the House of Lords, invoking a law not touched since World War I, the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. And the public support? It's not just strong, it's historic. For Harry, this isn't a PR scandal, it's a reckoning. One that could leave him with no title, no royal ties, and no way back.
William is reportedly formulating a plan to finally strip Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their HRH titles.
It wasn't always like this. There was a time when Prince Harry was the most adored royal of his generation. The cheeky smile, the rogue energy, the brave deployments to Afghanistan. He was the people's prince, the one who felt real, flawed, relatable. He brought edge to an ancient institution. After Diana's death, the public saw him as a symbol of survival, a boy who grew up in grief under the global spotlight. But somewhere between that soldier's salute and his Netflix deal, the admiration began to unravel. And now, for many, he's become a national embarrassment. So what happened? The turning point, insiders say, wasn't just Megxit. It was the way Harry walked away. Instead of a quiet transition into private life, Harry launched into a full-scale takedown of his own family.
King Charles is on his way out, Prince William is expected to take over the crown. And apparently at the top of his list is to say, "Peace out, Meghan, you're done." And he plans to formally strip Meghan Markle of her royal title.
The Oprah interview, the Netflix docuseries, Spare, the relentless wave of memoirs, leaks, documentaries, and veiled accusations. He didn't just leave the monarchy, he monetized its implosion. And for Brits who value discretion and loyalty, that was the ultimate betrayal. Even those who initially sympathized, believing Harry had been mistreated or misunderstood, have grown weary. The victim narrative that once pulled at heartstrings now feels stale, contrived. Critics say it's no longer about truth. It's about profit. Every revelation is packaged, every hurt is branded, and behind it all looms that royal title, Duke of Sussex. The irony? He's still clinging to the very identity he insists destroyed him. That contradiction has cost him dearly.
It's not a financial thing. Working royals do not profit. They do not use their names to make money. It's an honor to have an HRH.
Absolutely.
So the fact that she's continued to use this HRH when they've been instructed not to, I think is absolutely infuriating in Buckingham Palace. It was agreed with Queen Elizabeth that they will not use the HRH title. That is a long-standing precedent, and there's good reason for it. Basically, the HRH is only given to working royals and senior members of the royal family.
The public doesn't see a man healing. They see a man selling pain, while hiding behind a title that was supposed to stand for duty. Even in his own dukedom, locals are speaking out. One elderly woman told reporters, "He doesn't represent us anymore. He represents himself." It was a small quote, but it cut deep, because it echoed what many have quietly felt for years. Harry stopped being one of them the second he started profiting off leaving them, and now that gap is unbridgeable. The prince once seen as a breath of fresh air is now viewed by many as the ultimate royal contradiction. A man who torched the institution, yet won't stop cashing in on its name. It's not just sad, it's infuriating. And for a country known for its quiet strength, that fury is now turning into action. Prince Harry's recent BBC interview was meant to be a soft reset, a vulnerable sit-down, a chance to remind people of his humanity. But instead, it may have been the moment that sealed his public collapse. The timing couldn't have been worse. Hours before the interview aired, Harry had just lost his appeal to receive taxpayer-funded police protection during visits to the UK.
Prince William, he's reportedly furious after it emerged that Meghan Markle is still using her HRH title, despite agreeing to drop the title when the Sussex left royal duties.
Meghan Markle has been very brazen recently with the use of the HRH.
The courts had ruled no royal duties, no royal security. And yet, there he was, on national television, still asking for understanding, still speaking in vague riddles about reconciliation, and still hinting at the pain of being pushed away. The public wasn't buying it, because to many watching, it didn't feel authentic. It felt calculated, like he was trying to soften the blow of his legal defeat with a pre-planned sob story, and instead of earning sympathy, he sparked something else entirely: exhaustion. People didn't see a prince trying to repair relationships. They saw a man still nursing old wounds in front of a camera. Again, one line stood out in particular. "I don't know how much longer my father has," Harry said, referencing King Charles. The implication was emotional, even morbid, but instead of compassion, it stirred outrage. Viewers asked, is this really the moment to play the family card? After everything? Many saw it not as vulnerability, but as manipulation. A man who left the country, trashed the monarchy, sued the government, and is now suddenly concerned about his father's health? It felt opportunistic, insulting, and deeply out of touch. Then came the backlash. British pundits called the interview tone deaf. Critics called it emotional blackmail. Social media lit up with reactions like, "He's dug so deep, he's about to hit water." Even longtime fans of Diana's legacy felt uncomfortable, because this wasn't just Harry speaking. It was Harry speaking as the Duke of Sussex, still using the title, still presenting himself as royalty, and still asking for privileges he's no longer earned. If he thought the interview would buy goodwill, he was wrong. It triggered a wave of renewed criticism, and gave Parliament all the ammunition it needed. Prince who walks away from duty, then pleads for perks, then hides behind a royal name. In the eyes of many, that's not just offensive. It's the very reason his title should be stripped.
When the stakes are this high, does it make more sense to hear our story from us?
Oh, shut up. What do you mean the stakes are this high? Who do you think you are? Other than a latte-munching imbecile living in luxury in California while the rest of the world's in a cost of living crisis, moaning and whining about an institution which gave you the titles on which you now trade millions of dollars. What stakes?
You'd think if anyone still had Prince Harry's back, it would be the people of Sussex, the very region he holds a title for, but not anymore. In a twist that stunned even royal insiders, some of the loudest voices calling for Harry to be stripped of his Duke of Sussex title are coming from his own dukedom. Across the county, from Brighton to Chichester, voters aren't just disillusioned, they're outright furious. And one elderly woman's words summed it up with the clarity of a sledgehammer. "He doesn't represent us anymore. He represents himself." That line echoed through national news like a bell tolling for the prince's reputation. Because this wasn't London tabloids or palace aides complaining. This was grassroots rejection. The people who once lined up to wave Union Jacks at Harry's wedding now want him formally disassociated from their county. Why? Because they say he's abandoned everything the title is supposed to stand for: duty, humility, public service, and instead turned it into a logo. Critics say that by stepping away from royal responsibilities but keeping the titles, Harry turned the Duke of Sussex into a brand identity. Not a responsibility, not a civic duty, but a tool to leverage fame and fortune in California boardrooms. And that, to many in Sussex, feels like betrayal. Because when they see their county's name splashed across a Netflix deal or dropped into a PR rollout, it doesn't feel like pride. It feels like exploitation. The petition to remove Harry's titles is gaining traction fast, and Sussex residents are fueling the charge. For them, this isn't about petty grudges. It's about restoring integrity. One local MP put it bluntly: "You can't trash the monarchy, abandon your role, politicize your status, and still pretend to represent the people of Sussex. That's not how it works." And with Parliament taking it seriously, this isn't just noise anymore. It's a movement.
Now, Meghan, just last week, she did her first long-form sit-down podcast interview. She showed a basket that she had sent to the host of the podcast as a thank you for allowing her to come on. And here you can kind of zoom in here, and it says, "In compliments of Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex."
The irony? The more Harry clings to his title from across the Atlantic, the more distant he feels to the people he claims to represent. And now they're turning their backs, not out of hatred, not out of jealousy, but because they believe a title without service is nothing but a nameplate, and Harry hasn't served them in years. Behind the scenes of British politics, something chilling is unfolding, and it's aimed squarely at Prince Harry. What started as public outrage has now slipped into the hands of lawmakers. Parliament isn't just observing the backlash anymore, it's moving, quietly, strategically, with centuries of royal precedent behind it, and the tool they're using, a long-forgotten but shockingly potent piece of legislation. The Titles Deprivation Act of 1917. Most people have never heard of it, but within the walls of Westminster, it's taken on new life. Originally designed to strip peerages from royals who sided with enemy nations during World War I, the law is now being cited in petitions demanding the removal of Prince Harry's title. And while some critics say it's outdated, others argue that Harry's public attacks on the monarchy, political engagements in the US, and ongoing use of the Duke of Sussex title while profiting off anti-royal narratives are grounds for what one MP calls symbolic treason. Let that phrase settle for a moment. Symbolic treason. Not a legal accusation, not a crime, but a declaration that Harry has violated the spirit of the institution that made him who he is. And in royal tradition, that's not just serious, it's existential. Sources say the petition to formally trigger the Titles Deprivation Act has already reached the House of Lords and is gaining quiet support in the Commons as well. This isn't political theater. It's a legal and historical mechanism, one the Crown doesn't even have to endorse directly. If Parliament moves forward, the royal family can step aside and let the machinery do its job. No statements, no interventions, just signatures, votes, and cold formality. And that's the genius of it. The monarchy stays clean. The institution speaks through law. And Harry, he's left with no target to fight. Just the crushing weight of a title taken not by scandal, but by structure. For years, Harry's critics said the system would never touch him. That royal privilege would protect him no matter what. But now, the system is quietly knocking on his door. And if the door opens, the title that's defined his public image for 5 years could be gone overnight.
Major breaking news out of London. Buckingham Palace announcing Harry and Meghan will no longer formally represent the Queen. That means they will no longer receive public funds and they will stop using their royal titles. Those changes will take effect this spring.
To understand why Parliament is acting now, you have to understand what Prince Harry's title has become. It's not just a name, it's a brand. A lucrative global identity that's been used to ink multi-million-dollar deals, book primetime interviews, and push personal narratives. And critics say he didn't just walk away from royal duty. He walked away with the monarchy's most powerful marketing asset. That's why MPs are now using a phrase that turns heads in both Westminster and Hollywood: title laundering. The idea? that Harry is using his royal title not as a symbol of service, but as a way to lend prestige and credibility to ventures that have nothing to do with the crown. Netflix, Duke of Sussex, stamped on the contract. Spotify, same. Memoirs, documentaries, political appearances, even children's books, carrying the weight of a name that was supposed to be tied to duty, not content, not business, and certainly not personal grievances. Here's where it gets even stickier. Under the agreement Harry and Meghan made with the late Queen Elizabeth, they were allowed to retain their Duke and Duchess titles, but explicitly agreed not to use His/Her Royal Highness or perform royal duties. Yet time and time again, their public messaging blurs those lines. Business cards, press releases, podcast baskets, the title continues to follow them like a designer label, and to many, that label now reeks of fraud. The public sees it, Parliament sees it, and even royal insiders reportedly admit it's become a nightmare to manage. Because while the couple insists they're living a private life, every brand deal is built on the illusion of royalty. Critics ask, would Harry's memoir have sold the same without the royal connection? Would Netflix care about another privileged celebrity without the Windsor name attached? And now the backlash is real. Poll numbers are crashing. The Sussexes' credibility is eroding. And for Parliament, this is no longer a question of preference. It's a matter of principle. Titles are not for trade. They are granted, earned, and tied to public service. And if they're going to be used like a marketing gimmick, lawmakers are prepared to cut the cord permanently. For Prince Harry, the message is harsh but clear. If you turn your royal identity into a product, don't be surprised when the monarchy demands a refund. As the pressure on Harry reaches a boiling point, one name keeps surfacing behind the scenes, Prince William. But not because he's speaking out. Quite the opposite.
There are growing calls to strip Harry and Meghan of their royal titles. The New York Post is reporting that locals in the UK say enough is enough, especially after Prince Harry's disastrous BBC interview, which aired hours after he lost his appeal for taxpayer-funded UK.
William has said nothing. No public condemnation, no interviews, no palace memos. Just a stony silence that insiders say is anything but neutral. According to those close to the matter, William's silence is a signal. Quiet but unmistakable green light for Parliament to go forward. Because for William, this isn't just about politics or protocol, it's personal. He wasn't just collateral damage in Harry's post-royal media campaign, he was a primary target. From Spare to the Oprah interview, Harry painted him as cold, controlling, and emotionally unreachable. Meghan's stories about crying over Tiara's intention with Kate only deepened the wedge. And while William has kept his composure publicly, those close to him say the betrayal ran deep. Too deep for reconciliation. So when the petition to strip Harry of his title surfaced in Parliament, William didn't protest. He didn't object. And that silence, insiders say, was intentional. This is the moment where the institution enforces its rules, and William is more than happy to let it happen. Because if Harry's going to keep weaponizing the title he walked away from, someone has to draw the line. And William, he won't stop it. Not this time. It's a smart move. By staying out of it, William avoids feeding the narrative that this is a brother versus brother feud. He doesn't have to lift a finger. He lets the system do what it was built to do, protect the crown. And in doing so, he protects his own future. Because one day soon, William won't just be the heir, he'll be the king. And if Harry continues to use Duke of Sussex as a springboard for political commentary and personal branding, it undermines everything William has to inherit. This isn't revenge, it's restoration. William isn't demanding Harry's title be revoked, but he's reportedly fine watching it happen. After years of silent restraint, this may be his way of saying, enough. Let Parliament act. Let the title go. Let Harry face the consequences of choosing celebrity over duty. If Prince William's silence feels like strategy, King Charles's silence feels like surrender. The monarch has had ample opportunities to defend Harry. He could have spoken out after Spare, reassured the public during the security appeal, or pushed back against Parliament's looming title petition. But instead, nothing. Not a word. And in royal terms, that's not absence. It's approval. Charles, according to insiders, is walking an impossibly thin line. On one hand, he's a father watching his son spiral into public disdain. On the other, he's a king tasked with protecting an ancient institution under attack from within. For a while, he tried to straddle both roles. But now, it's clear. The king is choosing the crown. And the clearest sign of that choice? His refusal to defend Harry's title. This isn't just personal fallout. It's institutional optics. Charles knows that any direct interference would make it look like a father punishing his son. That's not the monarchy he wants to lead. So instead, he's stepping aside, letting Parliament do what needs to be done while keeping his own hands clean. Let the lawmakers carry the sword. Let the system enforce the consequence. Charles simply watches.
we'll see King Charles do this because he's not confrontational. I don't think that he likes the fact that he's been accused of racism towards his grandchildren in Omid Scobie's book. So I think he's going to continue to tiptoe.
And by doing nothing, he sends the message louder than any speech ever could. This is the price of disloyalty. Behind palace walls, the mood is reportedly tense, but not divided. Senior aides understand what's at stake. Harry's ongoing use of the Duke of Sussex title, while publicly criticizing the monarchy, is seen as corrosive, damaging, unsustainable. And Charles, more than anyone, knows what happens when royal scandals aren't contained. He lived through Diana, through Camilla, through decades of public distrust. He won't let history repeat itself, so he stays quiet. But that silence, it isn't weakness, it's power. The kind of power only a monarch can wield. No confrontation, no drama, just a steady retreat, allowing the institution to erase Harry's title without ever uttering a word. In the end, this may be Charles's most painful decision, but it may also be his most defining one. Because if he lets Harry keep the title, he risks the future of the monarchy, and if he lets it go, he loses a son, but saves the crown. For years, Prince Harry's presence in Hollywood circles has carried an undeniable aura, not just because of who he is, but because of what he still legally represents. The title Duke of Sussex isn't just ceremonial in LA, it's currency. It's what gets him into elite rooms, lends weight to his words, and justifies the tens of millions streaming into brand deals, docuseries, and speaking gigs. But now, Parliament poised to strip that title, Hollywood is watching and calculating. Because without the royal glow, what's left? Insiders say it's not just Meghan's ventures that rely on the Sussex brand. Harry's entire post-royal identity has been built around the idea of royalty. Not working royalty, not ceremonial royalty, but marketable royalty. From Spare to the Netflix series, every project has leaned heavily on palace imagery, royal storytelling, and that all-powerful nameplate. Strip away Duke of Sussex and the facade crumbles. The red carpet cachet disappears. The media pitch becomes far less compelling. Suddenly, he's not Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex. He's Harry Windsor, a man with a famous past and a fading platform. Would Netflix still shell out the same deal if the royal title disappears from the opening credits? Would elite organizations still pay six figures for keynote speeches from a man no longer officially tied to the monarchy? It's hard to say. But in an industry obsessed with exclusivity, symbolism, and power, titles matter. And Harry's, for now, still doing the heavy lifting. The whispers are already starting. Behind the scenes, producers and publicists are reportedly nervous. If the title gets stripped, how do they market him? How do they justify the price tag? Meghan, at least, has pivoted into lifestyle and media on her own terms. But Harry's identity is deeply fused to his royal lineage. If that thread is cut, what's left to sell? Because once the HRH styling is gone, and if Duke of Sussex follows, he's not just an ex-royal. He's a controversial figure with a long list of burned bridges, a loud public persona, and no formal ties to the institution he built his brand on. The title was the illusion of relevance. Without it, the offers may shrink, spotlight may dim, and the very foundation of brand Harry could collapse. This time, it feels different. Not like the other scandals. Not like another angry headline or a viral backlash that fades in a week. No, this feels permanent. Because what's unfolding now isn't emotional. It isn't reactive. It's calculated, quiet, and backed by centuries of royal and political precedent. Parliament isn't just talking. It's moving. The British people aren't just angry. They're done. And King Charles, he's not defending his son. He's stepping aside and letting the machinery of monarchy erase Harry's title, one quiet vote at a time. If the petition succeeds, the Duke of Sussex title will be stripped. Not with fanfare, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with cold finality of legal ink and historical tradition. No more styling, no more press kits with royal crests, no more public image crafted around a monarchy he spent the last 5 years publicly scorning. Just Harry, a man in Montecito, with no ties to the crown and no shield left to hide behind. What happens next? For all the noise and speculation, the truth is this: the crown has waited, the people have waited, and now the waiting is over. This isn't personal revenge.